Welcome to my inaugural teardown video for the Retro Handhelds YouTube. Showing off here a little bit of smudge, a little bit of use here. Here's the backside. There's the M1, M2, the vent for the intake fan because it blows out the top. Your shoulder buttons, your power and volume buttons. Oh, and there's this flap here that has your micro HDMI out or mini HDMI and the SD card slot. Yeah, looking good. Except for my ring light, right? This is my kit. I always try to keep things as smudge free as possible. But we're going to be using the tweezers for sure. And then this prying tool. It's a little beat up, but it still works well. And the screwdriver. Yeah, so far I've only needed the triple O, the 1 millimeter crosshead or Phillips head screwdriver. I definitely pull a couple things out later, but for right now, you're really only going to need that for the vast majority of the repairs. Oh, and a spudger, of course. You're going to want to make sure that you spudge stuff. Try not to use your fingernail. I was able to make little marks in it just using my fingernail, so the plastic is a little softer. Take out the SD card. That's good. Definitely the first step because that will get in the way when you try to take the motherboard out later on. There are 4 main case screws, which was nice for it to just be 4, and no little plugs, no little rubber plugs. So I'm going to take those out. And this mat that I use is magnetic, and it has a count for each one of the pieces. So there's 1, 2 through 56 slots total there, plus the upper area. The whole thing's magnetic, though. We're going to take these 4 case screws out, and then I'm going to start getting to try opening it up. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt, if I can be honest with you, to get it opened up. The tolerances for the case are real tight. They did a great job with the actual case molding, but man, I had a heck of a time trying to even get a fingernail in between all this stuff. So I had to hold this a little bit closer here to get it opened up, to figure it out. These seams are super tight, super tight. There you go. I accidentally turned it on, but I'm gonna keep going with it. I'm just trying to find a spot here to get this in. Not happening. That little mark there by the headphone jack is from my thumbnail earlier, from me seeing if it was going to be difficult to take apart. But I'll find a spot here eventually. It's just really tight, as you can see. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it's going to take at this point, but I know I can get it open. It's just real tight in there. Ah, there we go. That gives me an idea. So behind that little LED stick out, you can get your fingernail in there, but you can also get a spudger and maybe pop a couple of the clips. There we go. I heard a clip pop in there. And then I'm going to work it around here and see where all else I can get it off. It ended up that at the top of the console, it was a lot easier to get the top part off and then work my way back around to the bottom. So yeah, here you go. I was very happy to hear these little clips pop right here, because I've been working on this for a couple minutes, and I was really trying not to mar it up. And I did mar it up in a couple spots, but that's what's going to happen. So if you're repairing one of these, expect a little mar spots, because dang, it is tight. This whole time I'm stressed out too, so because I'm really trying not to break this. None of the clips broke. I was super happy about that. Yeah, there you go. Finally got it open. None of the clips broke on the inside. So this is the back. Get the shoulder buttons and those M1, M2 buttons in the back. So we're going to go ahead and pull these two buttons out. That one and then the other one. And those are actually pretty cool, the way that they're set up. They're the little retention clips, I guess you would call them. Don't actually clip, but they friction fit over those posts. And they work out really well. This would be a really good item to maybe 3D print to extend out. I'm sure people later on are going to want to maybe 3D print or custom mold some new face buttons for it, which that's actually really easy to do, as I'll show you here in a bit. So this was a misguided attempt right here. I was thinking I was going to take this out, and I got the screws out and then decided not to take it out because it was sprung and I really, really, really didn't want to break it. And it was in there. And I didn't want to mess with the screw or any of the magnet alignment or anything like that. So I got to wiggling, realized, I probably don't want to do that right now. So as far as repairability on that part, I'm sure if it breaks that you'll be more willing to take it out than I was, but I wasn't willing to break it to take it out. And that's definitely what was going to happen. But the tolerances on it are very nice as well. Yeah, good to go there. Very nice. So let's take a look here. These are the shoulder buttons right here, the R1 and L1. Those come off real easy, but make sure when you put them back in that you put that side post back on second. So those are the joysticks and the ribbon cables for the joysticks, and then the ribbon cables for the LEDs. And then 6 screws for the, I guess you would call it a lens plate. So we're going to take the tweezers and we're going to lift the little clip up on both sides, and then we're going to unscrew the side lens, and that's 6 screws again. And this comes out really easily. Underneath, however, where those, I didn't know this at the time, I assumed that the LEDs were built into the side lights. That's what I'm going to call them from now on, side lights. But they actually are not. They are stuck. They're a strip, a custom strip that's stuck to the side. And during this, like I didn't remove anything that was basically adhered down except for the battery. So I didn't remove any of the strip lighting or the Wi-Fi antennas. Those were also held down with adhesive and very, very thin. I didn't want to damage them beyond compare, but I will point them out to you. Oh, the power button panel as well. So the power button and the volume up and down button, that was also another example of these custom made, essentially ribbon cables with switches on them and LEDs. So yeah, I'm showing off there. That's not going to come out right. But you do need to remove the ribbon cable to get the controller daughter boards out. Absolutely. So there's 2 ribbon cables actually per daughter board that you really need to watch out for. So right here is this back plate. This is really nice. It's a custom fit. There's 4 screws in this main area and a 5th screw, and it looked like a little sticker there, maybe for warranty. I'm not sure. Maybe for quality assurance, so that people can check and make sure that the screws are in there, and then they put that sticker on it and says it's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and take this side light off here real quick. Because why not? There you go. Those come off real easy. So the case screws and this backplate screws, they are different. So watch out for that. And then there's actually, so there's 4 main screws here. There's a 5th screw that attaches it to the daughter board that we're going to take out here in a second. and that fifth screw is much shorter in a different shape. So watch out for that as well. 4 screws, and then this fifth screw over here is a different screw. So when you're putting it back together, make sure that you know which screws you're putting in where. It's a much shorter and pointed screw. There we go. That's the back plate. Pretty easy so far. Pretty dang easy, except for getting it open. That was a little bit of a pain in the butt. Now, let's take a look at these joysticks. So we've got these ribbon cables right here, and then we've got the connections for the speakers. Also have to make sure that I pay attention to that. And then we've got the connector for the fan right here on the motherboard as well. So that's the ribbon cables I was talking about. Those are the second ribbon cables that you're going to have to take off of the daughter boards, and then the shoulder buttons for the L1R1. Where am I going to start here? Might as well get these ribbon cables out of here. It's going to be a lot easier. So make sure you flip the retention clip up. That's how almost all of these work, is you flip the retention clip up. All right, so I've got the retention clips up. I'm going to go ahead and take the joysticks out now, though, because those are screwed into the daughter boards, and I want to make sure that those aren't then screwed down into the case, which they most likely are for retention. But they should come out real easy, and thankfully, both sides use the exact same joystick. So these are super replaceable. There we go. Make sure you use, especially with these small parts, make sure you use a magnetic screwdriver, because it's just gonna mess up your day if you don't. Gonna be a little bit more careful here. Gonna use the tweezers to pull this out. These are very, very tiny for my big monster hands, so we'll get it out without messing it up. There we go. Done. Let's see here. Next up, I'm going to start taking the screws out for the daughter boards. There's 3 screws on each one, and the third screw is kind of hidden up by the speaker. I'm not quite sure why they did that when it could have moved a couple millimeters over, but the one that's on the left-hand side there, that's not under my giant hands, that one's actually kind of buried under the speaker a little bit. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt to get out. Yep, so time to get these LED connectors, these ribbon cables, out, so I don't pull them out or tear them when I pull the daughter boards out. Go ahead and get the rest of these screws out too. Very easy. Now, I saw in Taki's Teardown that these speakers are actually adhered down, but they feel super, super firm to me. So I was afraid to try to rip them off. I didn't want to break them, but they are just adhered down. It felt soldered to me. There's the membrane for the face buttons, the ABXY. And that's the membrane for the start and select buttons. This right here is the lens, similar to the side light lens for the LEDs that go around the sticks. Both sides have one. And then there you go, there's the start select button. Those are unified. These, however, are not unified. These are piece by piece. Oops. That's the ABXY. I'm gonna go ahead and pull. Oh, I guess I changed my mind. So now we're gonna get this other daughter board out of here for the left-hand controls. It as well has 3 screws, and you'll see right there in the top corner what I was talking about. That third one is it's at a little bit of a weird angle. Like I had to actually tilt the console and kind of hope that it came out. Now that may just be from the speaker placement being off a little bit, or it may be a design flaw. I don't know which, but it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a deal breaker at all. It still came out, and it just was at a little bit of an angle. Buttons look good. I really like this design. I really like how the daughter boards come out. So we'll show right here. Next up is the other lens. I'm trying to be very careful because these are wedged in here just a little bit. There you go. That comes right out. And then I had a little bit of a surprise here. This D-pad is actually fused to the membrane. So that's a complete thing. Which that's all easily replaceable. It's just very specific. So grabbing, you know, a 3D printer and remaking that, you're going to have a little extra work as compared to making the other face buttons. I'm sitting here trying to figure out if I want to take the heatsink plate off or if I want to take the battery out first, because that battery is stuck down. It is stuck. It was a huge pain in the butt to get out. So I get the Wi-Fi antenna off. Get the second Wi-Fi antenna off as well. Start looking around here. And then, sorry, my head's in the way, but this connector for the fan is super duper tiny, and you're going to want to be very, very, very careful getting it out. I had to get my face right up on it to figure out the best way to get it out. And I ended up wiggling it with the tweezers and then kind of with another tool pushing it side to side to get it out. You do not want to break any of these wires. So wedging it and then kind of getting it hooked in there, pushing it side to side. There you go. Then it comes out nice and safe. Very happy. Now I can start working on this heatsink. So this heatsink also has different screws, and the screw that is under the ventilation area, or the screw that's on top of the ventilation area, is its own little itty bitty teeny tiny screw, as you'll see here in just a second. It's pretty comically small. This is all really, really small to begin with, but that teeny tiny screw under there is super small. Trying to figure out, oh, there goes the home button. I forgot to take that out earlier. So this is the screw I was talking about. It is super tiny. Trying to figure out how this stuff comes out. There we go. So that's the actual ventilation. That's the airflow vent for the heatsink itself. I'm trying to figure out if that was preventing any of this from coming off. I don't think in the end that it was. There ended up being a couple of small clips that surprised me under there that I didn't see coming. I expected this to be screwed down or clipped down in a different way, but it was a really good design in the end. There's several points through this where I start wiggling stuff, and then I have to say to myself, no, Thor, don't do that. You're going to break the damn thing. So anyway, we get this heatsink off, and we see what's underneath here. So this vibration motor that's underneath here that's also really, really stuck in there as well. Like just simply pulling on it, wiggling on it, that's not going to work. So I ended up having to get wedged underneath it. So we've got plenty of stuff, eMMC, or not eMMC, UFS. I keep making that mistake. And then the main processor. I'm not terribly happy with how much contact the heatsink has with the chips, but it's Android, and I'm not terribly worried about it. If you're worried about it, then you can get under here and replace these thermal pads with some actual like Arctic Silver or something like that, and it'll be good. I don't know if you would notice a massive performance increase, but you're maybe looking at another 10 or 15% before thermal throttling takes in. So yeah, here I am changing out to a very, very tiny flathead because I know this thing has to come out for me to move this plate off to the side. And it was pretty stuck in there. Yeah, that's the adhesive. It was pretty firm. I was impressed. And that's the heatsink. It's a really cool design. It's got these pins underneath the flap. It's really cool. I'm really impressed. Ultra custom. Just needs better contact with the chips. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get the other stuff out without damaging it, because it started to get a little bit more delicate here with some of this stuff. I was surprised too that the vibration motor was soldered in like that. I kind of expected another connector like they had for the speakers and things like that. This battery ended up being a real bear to get out of here. I was very frustrated by the end, and you'll see why. I'm sitting here going, what the hell? Why isn't this? Because it is sealed in there. The adhesive that they use on the back of it is strong. So I get the bright idea to start wedging it, and I'm trying to be real careful because even though I know there's a magnesium plate under there protecting the screen, I also don't want to warp the front plate to the point where I break the screen. That would really, really suck. And once I get the battery out, I actually freaked out a little bit and had to check it by plugging the battery in and turning it on. But I start shimming, and I just keep on shimming for a few minutes here to get this battery out. I can hear the plastic around it crackling a little bit as it peels away. And I'm taking my wedging tool and I'm trying to slightly start prying it up without bending the flat pack batteries, because that could be a problem if that happened. I also know that there's a ribbon cable right underneath the battery. I'm not quite sure why they designed that way. And that ribbon cable connects the daughter board for that controller to the motherboard. They maybe could have gone over the battery for sake of repairability, but if it's behind the battery, it shouldn't really, that piece shouldn't really get damaged if something awful were to happen to the console. You'll see here at a few points too, my hands shake because I'm very firmly doing this and trying not to get upset and do that. But this battery is the reason why I had to record a voiceover, because at a certain point I just start swearing. So didn't really figure that would be appropriate for this kind of content. You maybe could add some heat if you want to, but I'm not a big fan of putting heat on batteries at all. I don't think that's the right way to approach this, especially since literally on just the other side of that battery is the magnesium plate for the screen, and I don't want to start loosening up the screen adhesive at all, because again, these tolerances on this console are really tight. Their mold designers did a really great job, and everything's just really, really tight. So I don't want to personally add heat to it and warp the front plate or do something weird and then have a wonked console. I want this to come out as one piece without damaging anything. There we go. And I can hear the adhesive slowly pulling away from the back, and it's giving me some hope here, but at the same time, it's about maybe halfway disconnected from the adhesive, and man, oh man, I mean, like I said, you can see my hand shaking here, trying to get this thing out. It is a bear. I ended up using all of my shims and spudgers to get under there just to keep it from flopping back down and re-sticking. Oh, it still stresses me out just watching it. Oh, there we go. Jeez, oh Pete, what a pain in the butt. Yeah, I don't even know. That was crazy. For repairability of the battery, I know there's talk about using like a switch battery for connector and stuff like that, and I'm sure that's fine once you get this battery out. But geez, oh Pete, it was tough. And I'm sitting there going, please don't fall down. Please don't make me redo this. Hey, I didn't trash the screen. That's always good to see. This rubber mat that I'm using has a it's very grippy. So pushing stuff out of the way. I'm explaining to myself what a BITCH that was and that I won't be doing that again. And then I have to take the motherboard out. So here's the little ribbon cable right here. This connects to the power board for the buttons for the volume and the power button. And then making sure that the daughter board thing comes out. I did make a mistake here and accidentally trashed the Wi-Fi connector, but I was able to solder it back on with my infrared machine. If you are unfamiliar with really, really tiny soldering, you're not going to get that back on. So if you take that motherboard out of there for whatever reason, make sure you are intensely gentle with the extremely tiny Wi-Fi mounting spots on it. There you go, motherboard out. Very nice. AYN has a really cool little design here. It's very clean. It's not a busy board at all. I recently opened up the RG552, and that board is crazy busy with the surface components. This is shielded well, and everything's marked, so they know that this is the Pro board. It's very good. It's a great design. And with that, that's basically the full teardown. There's the magnesium backing there. I'm going to go ahead and get some of this other stuff off where I can. That right there is the sticker with the Wi-Fi antenna in it. And I'm going to get this top part off here. I'm determined to. There are two teeny tiny clips underneath the back that I couldn't quite see when the motherboard and other things were in there. But you can loosen them up a little bit and it'll just come right out. Here, I'll get it out here in just a sec. There we go. There we go. Came right off. So I'll go ahead and pop this part over. This is the cover for the SD card and the HDMI out. And that's about it. The rest of this doesn't really need to be torn down. It's all basically stickers or severely adhered to the console and doesn't really need to be taken apart right now. But you can if something bad happens to it. Just be very, very, very careful. I get the feeling that in the process of taking this stuff off that I would in fact break it and then need to replace it. So I didn't do that with certain ribbon cables and LED components. So in conclusion, the AYN Odin Pro, a lot of people are going to ask me for an out of 10 score for the repairability. I'm going to give it a 7.5. The daughter boards and the buttons, those are all extremely replaceable, as well as the joysticks, which the joysticks are going to be one of the things that wears out pretty quickly. On the other hand, that battery is extremely difficult to get out, so that's going to knock a 1.5 off right away. Now, I don't know how many people are actually familiar with screen repairs, but that's going to be another bear to get done too, as well it should be. But considering that screens are one of the more sensitive areas that break easily, this one's going to be maybe a little extra painful to get out because of that magnesium backing. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see how that goes. Otherwise, the motherboard is good. Make sure that if you're going as far to remove the motherboard, that you consider unpeeling the Wi-Fi antenna from the case instead of popping it off like I did. You probably don't have the equipment to repair it if you do. So the other things too, the buttons are great. The membranes are great. It was a little weird that the D-pad is stuck to the membrane, but what are you going to do? It's one piece, and I mean, I'm sure that'll be very, very easily to replace. It still drop in. The back plate is good. I don't think it's going to warp taking it off. The plastic, make sure that when you take it apart, if you have to take it apart for whatever reason, that you're very, very gentle, even more so than I was, obviously, because I still made some marks just with my thumbnail. So I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. 1.5 points minus is the battery because it was so impossible. Another 0.5 point for screen difficulty. That's just general. Nothing's going to get a perfect 10 because of that. And then I would say another 0.5 point for how tight the tolerances were just getting the case apart. So 7.5 out of 10, final score.